Welcome everyone. Welcome to the first Neutral Lounge, a podcast about gaming and gaming hardware. I'm your host Joe, and with me is my co-host Alex. Together, we make up the Neutral Lounge. Without further ado, let's begin. Okay, Al, I think the first topic of today is really, the consoles.
Mm,
Basically, had Microsoft and Sony, they've launched. People can't necessarily get their hands on the consoles very easily. But
yeah,
really, how do we think it's gone? I mean, has it lived up to the hype? Has it compared to kind of PC? What are we thinking?
I think. I think the first thing is that I think they've struggled with the supply chain. But even if you look at the stats, right, the interesting thing is PS5 has sold more than PS4 on its initial launch, so it's not doing that bad. But I think it's suffered exactly the same problem as PS4. It's just a lack of launch titles. So there's something there, but I think it's still sold out, right? So it's selling well, but I think there needs to be something a bit more. And it's the same with the Xbox.
Yeah,
So yeah,
I mean, I definitely think the consoles themselves have sold quite well. There's been a lot of doom and gloom about supply. Um, I just think it's the nature of the world at the moment that we're in this kind of scenario where it's unprecedented. Everybody's at home.
yeah,
We've got basically, let's say, a bit more time, and to be quite honest, we've also got a bit more money. Yeah, to
mm,
basically,
mm,
to spend on items like consoles and other pieces of electronics, games. I mean, gaming itself, especially the digital purchases, have actually kind of shot up.
oh yeah,
I mean, your services like PSN, the Xbox services, kind of Steam, they're doing extremely well. I mean, that's one upside to what the world's going through at the moment. So
unless you're buying GameStop shares, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's a whole nother podcast onto itself, isn't it? At the end of the day. But I think the console launches. I mean, what I would say, they've definitely done well. Obviously, supply is a bit constrained, but you can also argue that demand's kind of through the roof.
Mm,
PS5's definitely had a lot of good launch titles. I mean, I've got I managed to get a PS5 pre-ordered myself, so
yeah,
I've got some of those said launch titles. Xbox different kettle of fish. I mean, Xbox. I think they initially looked at launching with Halo, but we kind of know what happened with Halo, and there's been very little, for the Xbox in terms of
mm,
exclusive and launch titles. But again, they've got a Games Pass, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think to an extent, some of the backwards compatibility these consoles offer have been, I would say quite useful, given that we don't have, all the software in the world for them.
Yeah.
Because, I've had a fairly good time playing some of my old titles, if I'm being honest with you.
Yeah, yeah. I'm probably gonna wait until there's more stuff on it, and probably get the digital editions on probably the PS5 first, then probably the Xbox at some point. Assuming there's any exclusive titles I'm interested in, maybe a Gears of some sort. But even then, because the Game Pass works on PC as well, there's less reason for the Xbox unless you want it to like as a maybe a 4K kind of machine next to your big TV rather than necessarily having your machine, right? So
Yeah, I mean that's really the biggest differentiator between consoles and your PC. I mean, look, as you know, I've got a fairly good gaming PC. I like to think that I game as much on my PC, amongst
mm,
other things, as the PlayStations and Xboxes and Nintendo consoles I've owned. It's a different sort of kind of use case, right? I mean,
yeah,
some days I just want to drop into my kind of living room. I kind of want to switch on my 4K television or my full HD television when I had one of those, and just slump on the sofa
yeah.
and just kind of get the controller in hand and just game easily without having to worry about driver updates and troubleshooting some shit or whatever, because I haven't basically kind of basically set up my PC correctly, worrying about heat or some other
Yeah,
thing like that. I mean, it doesn't spoil the experience for me because I'm a tinkerer, so I enjoy that sort of thing. But yeah, it's a different sort of use case. But you're right. Game Pass is basically across Xbox and PC, so
yeah,
because of that, it kind of diminishes the need for an Xbox.
yeah. it's not well supported though at the moment. So when I built my machine kind of late last year, actually no, late the year before, it was 2019 when I kind of built it. In anticipation for Cyberpunk, no less. But that thing got completely delayed. So, um, yeah, it's just one of those that they're impressive bits of kit, and I think now with the supply issues on PC parts as well. I don't know. Yeah, it's just the value that you get from the Xbox and PS5 is actually really insane. You know,
Yeah.
the amount of power you get for it, you can't build an equivalent PC for that price.
No, no. I mean, you definitely can't. But and again, I think people kind of just base it too much on the maybe on the specs as well. I think I've said a few times it just should be we should got to be focused a bit more on the outcomes.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, right? A PS5 is in no way is it anywhere close to the power of a 3080 or an RX 6800. Yeah, those high end Nvidia and AMD graphics cards, and then you
Mm.
bolt on a really kind of good 8-core CPU, full desktop parts. But the reality is that you do get fairly good results out of a 4K television out of those comparable little consoles. And unless you're kind of like digital foundry, you're sitting there doing analysis on frame rates, pixel counts, and you got the expertise to sit there staring at a screenshot or a still frame or just looping through a video to kind of try and establish um, what's been switched on in terms of the graphics features and what else, and you're really not going to notice. You're really not. I mean, this is the kind of thing that I always laugh about. When I kind of listen to people and they say, well, it's not as powerful as this graphics card or that or it's got two extra teraflops or whatever the
Mm.
case may be. And I kind of think it's
Yeah.
it's kind of nonsense. You're not going to notice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, that was what I was going to compare it to. So with the Xbox Game Pass, I did have it temporarily when I built my new PC. So the reason why I said it wasn't well supported, it was like I wanted to play Forza. So I wanted to play Forza. I wanted to play it on a controller. It didn't work. It was one of those you're thinking, come on, at least allow me to pair it up to my my PS4 controller or something. It just wouldn't take it. Um,
Was that Game Pass or was that the
yeah,
just?
it's Game Pass. Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, I'm what I'm looking thinking of doing is, not immediately, but certainly when it will have to be when things kind of normalize a little bit in the world. But equally when my time, frees up a little bit, because that's really the biggest factor.
Mm,
Do I have time for you get another piece of gaming hardware, another toy, as my partner would call it. But really, I'm thinking that what I'll do with it is probably get it on one of them contracts. So I'll get
yeah.
Games Pass in the physical kind of console.
Yeah.
What I'll do with it is another question. Again, with like you said, Game Pass is on PC.
Yeah.
I can have those same experiences on PC. But is there anything that I really kind of want to play in the living room? Over and above what I can do with my PlayStation at the moment. Maybe not. Maybe not. But I mean, it's something that obviously I got to keep my eye on. I mean, that's been the strangest thing about kind of Microsoft's launch is that
Mm,
they haven't had that killer title, and it does make me think whether they're not really whether they're still engaging in this so-called console war, quote unquote. I'm doing my ear quotes now.
yeah.
Um, it's not it's not real. Is it real? Is a console war real? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there must have been. It'd be interesting to see what the statistics are with with COVID being in place, right? But the amount of people gaming must have shot up. The amount of
Yeah,
spare time people have had, whether it's travel time from work or just pure boredom now at weekends rather than actually going and
yeah,
doing this stuff,
yeah.
right? So there's
There's definitely the
you'd
boredom
expect
factor as
gaming to
well.
have gone up. Mm,
Yeah, but I just kind of think Microsoft are far more interested in, I would say, kind of pushing Game Pass
mm,
than they are necessarily pushing Xbox hardware. And they've said that something to that effect anyway.
yeah,
But in the back of my mind, I just think company like Microsoft, yeah, are they really going to basically invest millions upon millions of dollars in developing a fairly sophisticated games console to come second?
yeah,
And the marketing before the consoles were actually released, was the most powerful games console in the world. Yeah. So obviously they're invested in that, and by the way, they've actually stopped saying that. I think they've said the most powerful Xbox because obviously they're not that sure now anymore, based on some of the kind of
Yeah,
benchmarks that have come out,
yeah,
or comparisons, I should say, not quite benchmarks. Yeah. So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's just that I just think the kind of everybody's saying the same thing. To be honest, the direction's somewhat different. I mean,
yeah,
Sony are still the traditional kind of games console. Microsoft about something else.
yeah.
So it's an interesting it's interesting from that perspective. But I mean, I'm sure both companies have sold these games consoles in, I think, record amounts. From what I understood, I think
Yeah.
you said yourself. I mean, I think PS5 has sold more than PS4. I think Xbox, in terms of numbers anyway, the best launch they've ever had. So they're not doing badly, given the situation of the world,
Mm,
given that the direction they're going, they're doing well.
yeah. My question to you is, do you think they'll raise prices
Um,
for
for
their standard for their offering right now? Obviously, they've sold it on this particular, regular retail price. But with the shortage of so much access to components and stuff and supply lines, it just seems like unless they've got some kind of contract in there with all these suppliers that's got it fixed, it feels like they have to raise it at some point.
well, it's funny you should say that because Sony, recently had. I think they kind of announced their. I think it was their quarterly kind of numbers.
Hmm.
Yeah, and in short, they're doing quite well as an organization. And
Yeah.
the kind of like PlayStation and networking group is doing particularly well because that
Hmm.
thing kind of props up their business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, like that's my view of things because it does so well. But I mean,
Hmm.
I'm sure the other divisions are doing well as well. They've more or less said indirectly that they're selling PS5 at a loss. Yeah,
I think they
I
do
mean,
that for every console.
yeah,
They definitely
exactly.
did that for free,
Yeah,
as in PS3. Yeah.
exactly. So it's not a new thing. It's not a new
Hmm.
thing. It's actually a quite an old model. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's been that way for as long as I can remember. Um, but what's changed in the last two generations is that the amount they make through the services
Hmm.
and selling games on these services and everything else and content way outstrips what they make in terms of selling hardware.
Hmm.
So I think there was one metric that someone kind of came out with, and it was PS2 still is the most successful in terms of kind of sales and numbers of consoles, sold games console out there that there's ever
Hmm.
been. So it still sits at around about 100, I think 55 million
Hmm. Hmm.
units
Hmm.
sold in its whole kind of lifetime. But but what they said, right, is that in 1 year, and I think this was for the PS4, in 1 year, PSN had made more money than the whole lifespan of PS2.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
So really, the consoles these days are just a vehicle by which you basically consume their content.
Hmm.
It's kind of like what Apple do with the App Store. Your iPhone, your
Yeah.
iPad, and now obviously with M1 and the new Macs, it's just going to be a means of you consuming their content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And to a degree, and Microsoft are going the same way, really. I mean, that's what they're trying to really do.
Yeah. With Game Pass and Xcloud.
Yeah, because I actually think Sony can ill afford to raise the price of their console, given that they don't have a presence anywhere else.
Hmm.
Yeah, Microsoft could dip into that well, but I don't think they will. Obviously, they want to
Hmm.
be competitive, and these guys are ready to be making a loss on hardware.
Yeah.
The main part of their revenue is coming from services, game sales. So,
True. I mean, I guess it's a longer term thing, right? Once you've
yeah.
got a customer in, they will buy everything else around it, right?
Yeah, and I'm guessing during this last year, I mean that's been kind of like been even more true, given
Hmm.
that people have got time at home, bit more petty cash because no one's going on holiday, all of that sort of thing. But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely been a very interesting console launch. I mean, I think I'm glad it's launched because I was getting stupidly sick of some of the kind of comments online in terms of this spec, that spec. I mean,
Rumor this, rumor that.
yeah, it was getting a bit too much. I mean, at the end of the day, Xbox is X amount of power, PlayStation 5 X amount of power. The reality is, both consoles have come out and they're very comparable.
Yeah, yeah,
There's not much of a difference right now, and the difference will be in the software
yeah,
that's available for them. In longer term, God, they might push a bit more out of them. It's a very similar type of experience we're getting. I mean, I'm certainly enjoying my kind of PS5, and I just think the biggest deal is that backwards compatibility is a real thing on both consoles. I mean, for instance, I started playing Batman Arkham Knight again
mm,
to test out what it was like. And yeah, I mean, I don't think they enhanced it for PS5, but it's just extremely smooth.
yeah, yeah,
Something like Horizon Zero Dawn again, extremely smooth, great kind of 4K output.
yeah,
It just runs extremely well, so can't complain.
yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm also waiting for. I think that's why I didn't try to even. I'm not chasing for trying to get a PlayStation 5. It's just a few more games. Something like a Gran Turismo would just grab me straight away.
There was some sort of deal with Rockstar. So the next Gran Turismo, I mean, sorry, the
Oh,
next
you're thinking
Gran.
GTA, Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, you said you Gran Turismo.
Yeah, the racing
Ah,
one. Yeah, yeah. What was it? That's oh, is it polyphonic games or
Polyphony.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Polyphony.
polyphony.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm looking for a racing game really. That's what I'm after.
Ah,
And I
okay,
think they've
okay.
got Dirt. I think they got Dirt, but
It's
yeah,
an arcade racer, but that's going to be interesting though. I mean, Polyphony are kind of well known for pushing hardware.
yeah,
They always push the envelope out. Whether it comes out this year is another question,
yeah, yeah.
because their games, take a long time to kind of like get out into the world.
Well,
But I
yeah, they'll
mean,
probably do that. Do what they do every time. They do the sports edition first, the kind of lighter weight prologue version.
yeah, yeah, that's true. That's also very true. But yeah, I mean, it's meant to be 2021. So I mean, I'm kind of expecting
Mm,
to see it, but then again, it's not something that you kind of like hold your breath with. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I think there was a recent announcement from Sony, and they talked about when things were coming out, and I'm not even sure they spoke about Gran Turismo, and I was about to say Grand Theft Auto yet again,
Mm.
but I don't think they even spoke about Gran Turismo.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
it'd be interesting. I mean, yeah, again, that looks good.
I think Rockstar is just still milking GTA 5 is insane. The amount of virtual. I mean, I guess there's a couple of things. Epic game stores are kind of offered it for free as well a while back.
Mm.
So there's been an absolute huge surge of people on it. Um, and then I'm sure the DLC, the whatever virtual bucks that's on there is
Yeah,
probably going through the roof.
yeah. I mean, that's how these guys are doing it. I mean, it's like it's game. Half the time it's kind of it's gaming as a platform now. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, it's the same with Destiny, right? But I just got sick of Destiny. It was just they were pushing those things in front of me too much.
Yeah, microtransactions and all of that sort of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, so back to the console. Anybody managed to pick up one of these consoles is going to get a really good experience. Out of it. For me, obviously, I've got the PS5 now. I'm kind of waiting to get an Xbox,
Yeah.
but I'm certainly enjoying my PS5. And I think for me, the biggest thing with the PS5, and a lot of people saying this is the actual controller.
Mm, mm,
It's difficult to describe it because until you've got it in hand and you experience it, it's
mm,
almost impossible to explain to somebody well as to what a literally quote unquote, I'm doing my air quotes again, kind of like game changer it is.
mm.
Yeah, there's just something just very right about it.
Yeah. Have you noticed anything with the audio?
I
Were they
have.
supposed to be doing a 3D audio as well?
Yeah, I personally have. I can't really say for sure is whether it's because of my real lack of any, because I'm not an audiophile,
Mm,
so I don't have that kind of like experience with 3D audio, good quality surround systems that some other people would have.
mm,
But yeah, I did a lot of background reading on the actual Tempest engine and the type of surround sound and 3D audio it provides. But I can tell you what, I mean, I kind of used the PlayStation with my PS4 Sony PlayStation headset, the Platinum one, that supports 3D audio,
yeah.
and booted up PS5, put the headset in. Okay, you pick the profile that you need, runs a very simple test, and you select the one that works best for you. I think
Yeah.
there are about 5 of them. Then, just literally, even at the startup screen, even at the menu screen, you hear music from game to game that you're selecting. It's all of that sort of stuff, right? I notice a difference.
Yeah.
It's just, I do actually feel that the audio's around me.
Mm,
It's actually kind
mm-hmm.
of like being in a room where I've got a couple of speakers there and it's filling the room,
Yeah.
rather than it's something that's, I've got a headset on my head.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of think it works. I'm sort of excited for it, but it's going to be one of these things where they've actually literally got to develop for it.
Yeah. I can imagine it's going to be really sort of an extra added factor whenever the PSVR 2 kind of comes out as well. The whole thing would just synchronize up the
Yeah.
sort of 3D space and got your visual and audio kind of space.
Yeah, I do think so, but I mean, you would have thought Sony being a company who's heavily invested in audio equipment,
Mm,
home entertainment, should have enough know-how and chops to basically be able to do something good. And I think this whole thing really started from PS3 days. I mean, the Cell engine was very good at processing audio.
mm,
Yeah. And to a degree, I think the Tempest engine you have in the PS5 is, architecturally based on that. Yeah, PS4. I mean, my headset is a PS4 headset. Yeah. And
yeah.
like you said, VR. Yeah, that's totally a great use case for 3D audio. But it is impressive tech. You just kind of like wonder, where they're going to take it. You got to have the number one.
Mm,
You got to have the right game. You got to have the right kind of event or situation in the game. Clearly, you got to develop for it. So it's all of that sort of thing really. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I'm hoping that and the haptic feedback stuff on the controller really takes off, because if truth be told, right, we get better graphics every generation. Yeah,
Mm,
same with the PC. Every 3 or 4 years, there's a leap of some sort.
yeah.
But where there isn't a leap is through your controller, the
Mm.
audio as well, and that's kind of where you want them. I mean, that's you want some of that as well. Because to be honest, it's getting really difficult to trump some of the graphics we're getting, if you know what I mean. How much
Well,
better
yeah.
is it gonna get?
Yeah. Well, it gets to a point where, well, even 4K is already. I think once we're done with 4K, I can't see going any higher. It makes any sense. But it just doesn't seem like you'll get much payback
Yeah, it's
for
diminishing
all that
returns.
additional. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the human eye has limitations. Like
Well, I guess we'll have to get a Neuralink. We'll have to
yeah,
get a
yeah,
Neuralink
something
and
like
look at
that.
all.
Yeah, a real iPhone or whatnot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
It is the land of diminishing returns. I just think that there's a lot more to these games or these so-called experiences than just the graphics itself. And even
yeah,
with films, you watch your film, you turn off the soundtrack or the audio, and the impact of the thing is just basically it's lessened by at least 50%.
mm.
I mean, if you're like me and you basically hate watching horror films, right? The thing to do is basically just switch the audio down, and it's basically it then becomes a nothing scenario, nothing situation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely enjoying my PS5. I mean, if and when I get an Xbox, I'm interested to see like how that stacks up. I'm sure fairly well. Like I said, I think
yeah,
they're fairly even. I mean, even the Xbox has good 3D audio. It's just that Microsoft haven't really pushed it in terms of their marketing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And the Xbox controller is a good solid refinement on what they already have. It's hasn't got the haptics, but if you want a good controller, it's a really decent controller, and probably something you should back
mm.
getting for your PC if you don't want to wield a mouse and keyboard.
Yeah, yeah,
To be honest, I'm glad we're in a new generation, and now just kind of bring the games on. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Agreed.
Okay, I see. I guess that it's time to move on to the next topic. Topic two is really about AMD, Nvidia, Intel, and kind of like the recent launches. I mean, and I'm thinking in terms of end of 2020. start of 2021, and we had a kind of digital CES. The big three PC hardware silicon companies.
God, if we start with, obviously there's a lot of hype with Nvidia's launches, AMD's launches of new products and stuff. I don't know. I don't know if it's because I think Nvidia actually, even looking back now, because I think everyone was saying Nvidia did a really bad job. I think they've now the supply for 3070s have improved. 3080s are slowly improving. If you want them, I think they're there. AMD though, I think is CPUs are okay, GPUs aren't, and actually I think they've done a worse job, based on what I'm seeing, especially with the selling prices with the
MSRP, yeah. Yeah.
yeah. That is the key. That is the main killer.
Mm. I kind of think that AMD will prioritize their CPUs.
Mm,
They kind of know that they're basically at the top of the pole now. They've got a lot of mind share, and
mm,
people want that product.
yeah,
The GPUs, they're still trying to prove themselves versus something like Nvidia. Nvidia they're still king or queen,
yeah,
whatever way you
yeah,
swing with that. And I just think Nvidia definitely have more competition in it with AMD now. There's no doubt about that.
yeah,
I think AMD are really close. They're
yeah.
really close in terms of performance. And
For GPUs,
yeah,
yeah.
and if the situation was different and they could have kept to their MSRP and there was enough supply to basically fulfill demand, things might have been a bit different. And I just genuinely feel they've
Mm,
had to
yeah,
really
yeah.
focus on the CPU side of things. And equally, AMD, Sony, Microsoft, amongst other companies, these big three going to TSMC with the silicon, and that's the fab. There's going to be
Mm,
limitations on how much they can produce.
yeah.
That's the reality of it.
But I think AMD's done well on the CPU front. They clearly they've actually overtaken Intel technically on, well, at least some of the stuff that's happened before.
Yeah, and they've done it very quickly,
Mm,
actually,
mm,
comparably, back where they were. I mean, they've. I mean, it's not really often for me to see someone publish a roadmap. In our line of business, right, and what we do, and for
mm,
anybody who decides to listen to this, right, I and Al are basically in the technology space, so we deal with technology day to day, right? But it's not very often that we see someone publish a roadmap that they keep to. Number one, and then not only do they
yep,
keep to it,
yep.
but they knock it out of the park. You know what I mean? Like, because the last Zen kind of processes that launched, I thought, wow, these guys have just literally, it just feels like they basically over delivered.
Yeah. That was the thing. I mean, it was so impressive. I built a full AMD machine. I'll just go for it. I think they've done really well. The competition is great for the market. Yeah, and they're really pushing them. And actually now, I'm tempted to build the third generation one, the full AMD stack again. But the GPUs are the thing that's holding me back on them at the moment.
I think you can wait because
Mm,
personally I don't because the supply is such that
yeah,
you're gonna have to wait anyway. There's not gonna be a choice in the matter.
yeah,
Again, the whole GPU thing as well is just like, do you have a use case for it, or you just kind of like, do you really just want it? It's like most of the time, tech heads like just want it. They don't have a use case. Let's be honest. Because some of these cards they're
yeah,
4K capable cards. They're not 1440p capable cards or 1080p capable cards. They're
yeah,
4K capable cards. But yeah, I agree. I mean, like, AMD CPU wise have knocked it out of the park. Supply's definitely got to improve because no one can get their hands on it. But equally, right now
yeah,
there's not a lot of
yeah,
competition top of the stack, and they've had a roadmap, they've kept to it. I think it's been about 4 years they've been at this, right?
yeah,
But they're not stopping. Zen 4's coming out, Zen 5's coming out.
yeah. And it'd be interesting to see what Intel do now because of their new. I know they've got a new CEO, kind of in, and it'd be interesting to see. He won't be able to do anything, instantly to change that business line. But another year, another 18 months, there may be maybe some good competition from Intel.
Yeah, I think, to be honest here, I think that's probably the biggest change above and beyond any kind of product
Mm,
for Intel.
yeah, yeah,
No disrespect to the outgoing CEO, but he's brought in there seemingly to do a specific job because he's more of a finance guy, as I understood it. So it seemed like he just was there to kind of steady ship, perhaps.
yeah, yeah,
This guy is a real engineer.
yeah.
he was at Intel for quite a long time. I think someone said 20 years, something along those
Yeah,
lines.
and then it was what VMware I think he was at. Now he's
Yeah,
come back.
yeah, yeah. And again, you look at Lisa Su at AMD.
Mm.
She's an engineer.
Yep.
Yeah. Funny enough, she actually worked on the cell processor at IBM.
Mm.
She's got a track record of technology and being an engineer and working on these sorts of kind
Yeah.
of technology kind of products. I don't think Intel necessarily gonna beat kind of AMD in terms of CPU.
Mm.
But I think what they need to do is just get a bit more competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because right now there is really no reason to get an Intel CPU. Yeah.
At least from a retail angle, yeah. And any basic consumer,
Yeah, yeah.
then it's
I was gonna say
almost always AMD.
we're not talking enterprise really.
Not
We're
yet.
actually no, not yet, not yet. But enterprise takes a long time to kind of like turn around though. You know what I mean? It's a
Yeah.
much more risk adverse kind of like area, isn't it?
But I'm sure
But I mean,
AMD are going after that next. It's the
oh, they've
most
got their
obvious one, yeah.
they've got their epic, they've got their epic kind of like parts
Yeah.
pushing for that. But to a degree, Al, I wouldn't actually even say it's laptop. I
Mm.
think the desktop market is, for me, CPU wise, is all about AMD.
Yep. Yep.
The laptop mobile compute market
Mm.
is Intel are still there and they're
Yeah.
still doing relatively well, but they're being pressured. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that.
I think with the 5000 series of CPUs or APUs, you can call them, they're gonna be such a good push into the laptop market.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a big push from Intel to dislodge or kind of stop kind of AMD's trajectory.
Mm.
Yeah, because I mean, Intel are bringing out Rocket late. I think it was you said a end of Q1. I think in March or early Q2, and I kind of think that's just there to kind of really stem the bleeding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to a degree, I think they're gonna retain gaming performance advantage. And
Mm.
I've seen the marketing material where it's basically they've got a 19% uptick in IPC versus the current generation of Intel chips.
Yeah.
But that really translates to a single digit, and I think it was between 4 to 8% across different games performance increase versus kind of the existing kind of Zen processors.
Yeah.
But it's just a
Yeah.
stopgap. And I think come the end of the year, I think Q3 they bring out this thing called Alder Lake, this new series of CPUs, which is based on I think this big little configuration. So it's very like mobile phone
Mm.
processors where you have some high powered cores and some smaller lower powered cores. I think the idea there is to take care of like background processes for
Mm.
the OS, leave the
Mm.
the 8 cores free to kind of take on heavier duty kind of like tasks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think in Q3, Q4. That's when we're going to see the real challenge from Intel coming. Well,
Mm.
that's really their new architecture. It's going to be on their 10 nm process that's been promised for God knows how many years. And that's when
Yeah.
we're going to see it. But then if AMD continue, Zen 4 comes out in the new year. Say what happens
Yeah.
then? Yeah, they're always it just seems
Yeah.
like they're
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
going to be behind. They really need kind of AMD to really screw up. I mean, like they stand still, and if they bring out Alder Lake
Yeah.
and it's any good, I don't know that will happen. But
Yeah. And wasn't Nvidia supposed to? I thought they were launching a GPU specifically for Bitcoin mining. At least that's what I thought they were.
there was talk of that, right? I mean,
Mm.
I've heard other rumors and news saying that they were actually selling some of these new RTX 30 series cards to actually miners anyway. That's where the
Mm.
supply went early days anyway. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. It is just rumor and speculation. But I didn't know they were
Yeah.
specifically creating a card for that sort of thing.
Yeah, because you could do one. Because basically, you don't need all the visual output connectors and all the sort of
Oh,
converters
it's a
for
compute
it.
card. Yeah,
Yeah. So basically, you because that's all you need for
yeah, yeah.
mining. You don't need visual output of anything there. You just need something that can actually
Yeah,
run.
I think
The
both Nvidia
yeah.
and AMD have got kind of enterprise compute cards. But I
Mm.
didn't know Nvidia would have kind of tried to have something specific for that market.
Mm.
Be interesting if they did though.
Mm.
Would it be good for gamers or not? I don't know. Like, given it all comes out of
Mm.
fabs, I don't know, and I doubt it would have been good for gamers.
Yeah, it would have just ended up being the silicone went on to something else, and they're selling more of those probably potentially. Um, maybe that's what we need to push Reddit to do is get rid of Bitcoin.
It serves a purpose. That's always up to serves a purpose. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean, but Nvidia still king of GPUs for now. But I don't think they're on the back foot. I almost think they
No,
kind
no,
of
no.
relish the
Yeah.
challenge for AMD.
Hmm.
I never got the sense from Nvidia that they slowed down. Aside from Turing,
Hmm.
the 20 series, right, where they could have really done more. They really had
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
competition, yeah. Intel have been on cruise control for years. AMD have obviously not had anything to compete with because we were stuck with
Yeah.
four core processors for how long? A long time.
Hmm. Very long.
But yeah, I mean it's gonna. I mean it will be interesting in 2021. I mean I fully expect Intel to make a dent. At least try and say that we want to compete again. I fully expect Nvidia to really continue. That's the only way to put it. I mean like they're not going to want to give up their performance crown, or they want to keep on top. There's no doubt about that. To me, that just makes for very even competition. If you
Yeah.
look at AMD's roadmap and philosophy, starting off with the CPUs, I think Zen 1 was just about here's a new architecture, we're starting afresh, we're competing. It wasn't even Zen 2, it was Zen Plus. We are now maturing this architecture. You should buy it.
Yeah.
It works well. Zen 2,
Yeah.
we are now comparable to what Intel are offering, and we've got a multi-core advantage. Yes, Intel have got the single core advantage, but there's a reason for you to choose us over Intel now. And
Yeah.
then Zen
Yeah.
3,
Yeah.
there's no reason you should buy Intel. No reason at all, right? And I kind
Yeah.
of see the same thing going with the Radeon GPUs. So RDNA, this is such a mouthful. I hate this acronym or whatever it is. This kind of like four-letter thing. RDNA 1. Again, here's our new architecture. We're here to compete. They didn't have an
Yeah.
RDNA 1 Plus, but I kind of think RDNA 2 is almost that. We're
Yeah.
now maturing and we're competing, and we're winning in some areas, but not all. RDNA 3, I think you're going to see them really just absolutely level pegging and beating Nvidia on certain things. But Nvidia will not stand still.
Mm-hmm.
They will not stand for this. One thing I know, I think that company's gonna fight. I don't think those guys mess
Yeah.
around. From what I can see, they're not like an Intel, or how Intel have been, for the past kind of like 5 or whatever years, right? They're there to basically take charge, I think. But so it makes for interesting stuff.
Yeah. 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 I mean, with Nvidia and their GeForce Now platform and stuff like that, there's plenty of stuff that they're pushing for. And the DLSS 2 has done really well. Obviously, ray tracing they're still pushing heavily as well. So, like you say, I think they are relishing the idea of AMD pushing them and competing.
And with that said, Al, let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is ray tracing.
Mm,
New consoles have ray tracing.
yeah.
What do we think ray tracing gives the gamer or the consumer? What the devs get? And really, how is this going to impact the
Mm,
PC space? Because that's where it all started. Let's be honest. It didn't start with the
yeah.
consoles. It started in the
Yeah.
PC space. So.
Hmm. I mean, I guess ray tracing, has a multiple sets of purposes, right? One, I guess, is the visual quality, the accuracy you get from a reflection of light, an ambience of light, and other things that kind of apply to it. So it gives you kind of that realism, more immersiveness, I guess. The interesting thing I think with the devs is that whether it actually makes their development cycle quicker, I think is the question, right? Whether this actually improves the amount of workarounds they have to do versus just relying on on ray tracing and the APIs that come with it. So maybe there's a good side to that where the dev cycles of producing good performant AAA titles, etc., are easier. I know there's a performance hit, but your hardware is probably handling that. But if it improves the software cycle, maybe that's a worthwhile thing longer term.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think it's still a technology that needs a lot of maturing.
Hmm.
Because you're right about the performance here, even with hardware. In
Hmm.
the PC space, I mean, I guess if you're used to above 100 FPS,
Hmm.
then ray tracing at high resolution it's not good.
Hmm.
With these new consoles, obviously, console players have been so used to 30 FPS. that having ray tracing, high fidelity, high resolutions at 60 FPS is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the long and short of it. I kind of think the way the ray tracing is at the moment, it doesn't help devs at all. The
Mm.
whole kind of end state of ray tracing is full path ray tracing.
Yeah.
So you kind of move away from the way we do things traditionally, just this rasterization, where you convert 3D geometry, and it literally is
Mm-hmm.
3D geometry in terms of math, right? Into
A 2D visual.
a load
Yeah.
of pics. Yeah, effectively a load of
Yeah.
pixels. And that still happens, obviously. We're only partially using ray tracing, stuff like
Mm.
reflections, stuff like shadows, and only for part of the scene, not the whole scene.
Mm.
And equally, ray tracing being so resource and system heavy, you're giving people a means to switch it
Mm.
off and
Mm.
go back to the traditional means of doing reflections like screen space reflections.
Yeah.
So in actual fact, whilst the end state would be to make it easier for developers to manage graphics
Mm.
features and whatnot, we're actually giving them more work with ray tracing.
Oh yeah. In
Yeah,
the short term,
yeah,
having to support both rasterization and all the shortcuts you need to make it kind of work,
yeah. This,
versus RT and trying to make RT performant. It's almost like 4 times the work.
yeah. I mean, it's just it just feels like a lot of work. I don't know if
Mm.
the engines will go some ways in helping this situation, but I'm not a games developer. But
Mm.
right now, yeah, I don't necessarily think it helps developers at all. I mean, aside from maybe helping them to basically understand and develop knowledge and experience with ray tracing. So when we
Yeah.
get to a point where we can do ray tracing without the kind of performance hit we've got now and it's full path, we don't have to, deal with reflections by baking reflections into the art or
Mm.
whatever else, then it's a different story.
Yeah.
Definitely a different story. So, but as for what I think it gives the gamer or consumer, it's another bit of fidelity. I must admit,
Mm.
I'm not exactly sold on ray tracing. I think it looks nice. Don't get me
Mm-hmm.
wrong, but you can also do without it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's nice to have it,
Mm-hmm.
but if it wasn't there, I'd probably still play the game if you know what I mean. And
Yeah,
I
and you'd probably sacrifice that fidelity for 60 frames, right? If you couldn't
yeah,
get 60.
you definitely would. You definitely would. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I think again going back to getting my hands on a PS5, right, and and this is such a silly thing, right? Because in the early days of consoles,
Mm,
60 frames per second used to be the norm, and then I think from the PS3 days, Xbox 360
yeah.
onwards, things start to go back to 30.
Yeah. When they couldn't handle the graphics that were being pushed out, then yeah, a lot of 30
Yeah,
frames per second things started reoccurring again. And
yeah.
you can feel it. You can feel the difference when you're looking
Oh
at the
yeah,
game between the clunkiness of 30 versus 60.
yeah. You definitely can. I mean, I remember recently getting God of War on
Mm,
PS4, running on PS5, and you obviously have
mm,
the PS Pro modes there, so you can either prioritize frame rate or prioritize fidelity and resolution. So when that happened, I kind of went in. You run in backwards compatibility with PS4 Pro. Tried it at try at high frame rate. Tried it at high fidelity. I picked the frame rate every day of the
mm,
week. You could just visibly see one was smoother than the other, but I really did struggle to
yeah.
see graphics fidelity, one being, close to full 4K, let's say, is probably checkerboarding, and one not. You know what I mean? And they've actually
Mm,
released, I think, an update to God of War, so you can have both. So, I mean, that would only happened, I
yeah.
think,
Yeah.
last week. 60 frames a second, for me, it trumps kind of whether you have ray tracing or not. That's the way you should
Mm,
really play. I mean, any day of the week, I think.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
And the consoles having ray tracing is only going to be good for PC gamers because at the
Mm,
end of the day, right? I mean, ray tracing started in the PC space. The
mm.
uptick,
But yeah, I'm thinking is there other advantages though? All the stuff that how should I say, animations and Pixar and all those sorts of guys. Surely this should be able to make their lives a bit easier.
hmm, I don't know. I don't know that it does because
Mm,
we're at the moment using ray tracing in what I'd say is a very limited way. We're not rendering the full scene with it. It's a reflection. It's part of the scene.
mm,
Certainly for gaming, it's not the advantage. I mean, in terms of Pixar and animation and all that sort of stuff, because that's offline rendering. It's not real time rendering. On the fly rendering. You.
yeah, but I think that it doesn't that feed into a cycle of because they have to, they're manipulating the models, etc. They have to, there's probably like I'm guessing, right? I don't know animation in the world, but it's probably an overnight batch, and then they go and watch it the next
Yeah,
morning,
yeah.
and then they probably do further tweaks off the back of
The
it.
animation guys, the rendering guys, the offline rendering guys,
Mm.
they've been ray tracing for as long as I can remember.
Oh yeah, but overnight versus real time, right? If you can imagine, if they can live with,
That's
that's what I'm
also
saying. It's the
true.
difference. The
But
advantage
remember,
of
they've probably got like supercomputers to deal with this sort of
true.
stuff, not graphics cards. At
Mm.
worst, they've probably got kind of like clusters and clusters of graphics, high-end graphics cards to deal with this sort of stuff. But yeah, take your point. If we could get that good at ray tracing, the standard gamer and consumer, imagine how that would translate to what these guys are
Yeah.
doing in terms of movies and media and all that.
Yeah. You could just be able to make movies from in-game
Yeah,
engines.
and to a degree, that's happening because
Yeah.
Unreal Engine, it seems to have foot in the door for that sort of thing now. It's not only just the games engine; they're doing media
Yeah.
and movies, so it's happening,
Yeah.
and that's a very interesting space actually.
Yeah.
I think we all need to talk about that because I was dread impressed with the Unreal
Mm.
Engine.
I'm gonna add it to the list. Yeah, and I still need to experience ray tracing, so I've not played with it yet. But again, I prefer performance over
Yeah,
fidelity.
I've used it in PC and consoles now. I mean, like first time was probably with Metro. Recently, it's been with PS5, and so I've kind of used it with. Ironically, not Spider-Man because even though I've got it, I've not actually kind of booted it up. Yeah, it was Control.
Mm. That was already a
Yeah,
good-looking
yeah,
game already.
definitely. I mean,
Mm.
and PSN actually gave the ultimate version of Control free with
Mm-hmm.
PSN subscribers, which was
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty good.
Mm.
But yeah, just looks pretty good, runs pretty well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But again, I just kind of think, would I pick 60 frames over and above ray tracing every day of the week? No doubt about that.
Yeah. And I think the 30 series of Nvidia cards do allow you to in some games to do that. Not all the latest ones, but majority of well maybe most I would say
Yeah,
is
I
in there.
think they've really upped the game in terms of kind of ray trace performance, and I mean, and that's definitely where the new batch of AMD graphics cards are lagging behind. Not so much on rasterization. I think
Mm.
rasterization they're very close, but in terms of ray tracing, they're
Mm.
definitely behind, quite easily behind. In terms of and again that kind of goes into the whole kind of upscaling technology, with DLSS.
Yeah.
To be honest, if it works as well as they say it does, and I've had limited exposure to it, then the reality
Mm.
is it's a real game changer for a lot of different areas. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could imagine a handheld with DLSS type of technology, low powered handheld,
Yeah.
able to kind of churn out great level of fidelity.
Yeah.
Based on that, probably be low powered as well.
Mm-hmm.
Helps with
Mm-hmm.
battery life, blah 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 blah. So, sorry, on it goes. There's a lot of advantages to it. I mean, I'm sure the consoles will be using it if they want longevity.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure about graphics card manufacturers how they would perceive this. I mean, right now it's a marketing thing because DLSS has got such traction in terms of mind share. They're gonna want it. But to me, right,
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
have widespread adoption, that kind of means to me, right, that the longevity of graphics cards is going to basically be extended.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. If DLSS as a technique continues to vastly improve, then the need to upgrade beyond where we're at
Mm,
with the latest series, it just
yeah.
diminishes, right? And again, maybe beyond 4K just doesn't make any sense. So yeah.
PS4 Pro used checkerboard rendering, and it had kind of like hardware
Hmm.
inbuilt for that where you can compare one frame to the other. I've never
Hmm.
understood why that wasn't made more popular.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, I'm pretty sure that there's some sort of upscaling in these new consoles as well.
Oh yeah.
I've seen proof of that. I mean,
Yeah.
looking at Horizon Zero Dawn, when you compared the base PS4 version on a 4K television versus the PS5
Hmm.
backwards compatible PS4 Pro version, the image quality is real
Hmm.
chalk and cheese, in my view
Hmm.
anyway, from
Hmm.
what I
Hmm.
could
Hmm.
see with my like naked eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like we need to push Digital Foundry to do something.
Yeah, they've probably already done it. We probably just need to look it up. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be surprised if they hadn't.
Yeah.
I should by all rights be playing, Miles Morales, the Spider-Man game.
Mm.
That's had been patched, and that's actually got a 4K 60 FPS ray trace mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with that said, let's move on to what's going to be our last topic of this podcast.
Mm.
So I think what we want to talk about here is SSDs,
Mm.
and why SSDs could change the way we play.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I kind of think this basically, it's a bit of, it's almost like science fiction, because obviously the consoles manufacturers, both of them, more Sony than I would say Microsoft. Microsoft just responded to what Sony were doing. Are
Yeah.
basically pushing their new hardware with the SSDs being front and center,
Yeah.
trying to sell us the idea that it's more than just loading a game quickly, and it is. I think it will
Mm.
end up being, hopefully, more than loading a game quickly. Loading a game quickly, that's kind of convenient, and
Mm.
that's a good, like
Quality of life thing.
quality of life. That's what I really wanted to say. Above
Mm.
and beyond that, I mean, that doesn't exactly change the way games are going to be built or designed, right?
Mm.
You
But I
know,
think if it can reduce loading screens, which I think they've already demoed in all the sort of demos for both PS5 and the new the Series X and S, etc. It's the immersion, right? It's like, I guess we've probably been used to it because loading screens are just a natural thing that's been there for probably since forever
yeah,
in gaming.
probably. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the friction between you and the game, right? Getting into
Mm-hmm.
game, right? But I gotta admit, I'm old enough to remember the 8-bit computers. Where you basically used to put like an audio tape in a
Oh
player,
yeah,
and then you get all that kind of shit going on, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
And then, like maybe kind of 5 or 10 minutes later, you've got this game.
Yeah, there's no progression bar or anything. It would
Yeah,
just
yeah,
it would just keep whining and
yeah. It happens when it happens. And by the way, when it's loaded up, the game runs at probably 5 to 10 frames per second. That's what you got at the end of it.
yeah,
Then obviously things got a bit better. Beyond the 16-bit computers, you had the consoles where you had your game cards.
yeah,
That got a little bit better. With the advent of hard drives, again, gets a little bit better.
yeah.
I think for me, it's going to be more about then whether you can fill up the RAM quickly.
Hmm.
Because PCs have had that for ages. They've had SSDs for ages. Like maybe not these PCIe 4 SSDs, but they certainly
Hmm.
had SATA. They've had PCIe 3.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I heard described by Mark Cerny in his PS5 talk was
Hmm.
really what I'd call just-in-time rendering.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
I did actually watch that talk over and over again to see if I was kind of hearing what I was hearing, because just for me it was interesting stuff. I mean, right now, like if you think about how games are built, the amount of RAM that we have last gen versus this gen, it's doubled. But you'd
Yeah.
expect that you'd at least expect that after about 7 years.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
What I understand is they literally, and I'm talking about graphics data really more than anything else at the moment, but
Hmm.
use the hard drive. They basically load in as much data as they can, and they cache it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the cache as it stands is either going to be used or not used at all.
Hmm.
I mean, I would say it's also for a number of seconds ahead,
Yeah.
10 or 20 or 30, whatever the number is, but significant. Whereas what Cerny was talking about was actually the SSD is so quick that actually you can basically load the data you need or an event that may happen a couple of seconds in advance or
Yeah.
per game sorry, per game event. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that I took from that talk is that it's not about SSD alone. So
Hmm.
what they've done really is, I mean, and this is where it all kind of like gets a little bit sci-fi. Equally, where it gets to a point where, how come you guys didn't hear this? What it's not about the SSD drive. There's all this other shit around the SSD drive that does all this other stuff that you're not listening to. What he was trying to say is that we've got a really quick SSD and that has a certain amount of bandwidth, but that's not enough because there's all these other
Yeah.
bottlenecks And ultimately, it's about landing the
Yep.
data into the right area of RAM as quickly as possible. It's almost a continuous flow. So it's basically a data streaming engine, a low latency data streaming engine.
Mm. Or just enough, I guess, is the point. Is
Just
that
yeah,
now
absolutely, just enough.
now SSDs are quick enough, then you can, load your map as you're kind of walking into it. Unlike I mean, if you look very carefully at games that we were, last gen or the gen before, there are areas of space in which it deliberately delays you moving into one place to the other, so that it can pre-render the preload down that whole map, down that whole scene.
But then you have areas of memory or data in memory that you, depending on the event in the game, you never use,
Mm.
and that
Yep.
means you've got
Yep.
a lot of redundancy almost.
Mm.
So that's what I took from it, and the way they were talking about it, low latency, able to ship stuff into memory rapidly. Yeah, it starts with the SSD
Mm.
bandwidth. They've got compression, really good compression. They've got a means of basically, I think they call it GPU memory scrubbers. So basically, be very selective about what you take out of the GPU memory
Mm.
rapidly, and that is basically what gets you your throughput. It's not even throughput. It's actually the low latency that you're looking for.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any games that use it, by the way. Zero.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We need that. That's what we're waiting for, right? I think with the new engines taking advantage of it. I think Unreal Engine 5 will be able to take advantage of it, and it'd be interesting as they distribute that out and getting more and more developers on it. I'm looking forward to when that actually really kicks in.
Unreal Engine built with that in mind.
Mm.
Also, Sony invested $250 million in
Mm.
Epic.
Yep.
I can only imagine they did that because on the Unreal Engine, and they kind of want to build a relationship. Because the PS5 demo that we saw was so impressive. It just was so impressive. I just thought to myself, wow, if you can do that on this piece of hardware, that's meant to be, well, it's a console. It's
Yep.
not going to be as powerful as a really high-end PC. That's
Mm.
super impressive. But how are you getting those results? Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it was, it was real footage on,
mm.
on a console, probably a dev console, not even the
Mm.
real thing.
Yep.
So, that was super interesting. But yeah, I mean, I just think, there's this misunderstanding that it's all about the drive. It's
Yep.
not all about the drive. I really don't think it is.
Yeah. You need the engine. You need the game developers to understand it. There's so much stuff before that. But
Yeah,
if you have the ability, you have the base to work off. Then yeah, go for it.
yeah. Well, I was also thinking about the surrounding hardware around the drive that people are
Mm.
not talking about.
Mm.
This this IO controller that Sony custom built. It's
Mm.
been designed to basically work hand in hand with the GPU,
Yeah.
and I think that's all kind of interesting. And I think we'll see the first evidence of that actually when kind of Ratchet and Clank comes out,
Yep. Yep.
because that's actually it's not a cross-gen game as much as I know. It's actually a fully PS5,
Mm.
built for the ground up with PS5 in mind.
Yeah. That or Horizon 2. That'll
That's
probably
cross-gen.
is it okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I'm hoping that will be. You would think an open world game really fully make use of it.
Mm.
There are
Yeah.
over 100 million PS4s out in the world. For the first year, I don't begrudge Sony for wanting to make money.
Well, yeah. I mean, if the engine can make it, scale back to PS4 with minimal effort, as long as it didn't build it from PS4 up to PS5 and built it the other way around, then I think you're
That's
okay.
the question, isn't it? That is really the question. And like,
Mhm. Mhm.
when was the second Horizon? When did development start? Did it start before they, were, you know, before like, it was
Before they even
viable
spec'd it out.
to basically write on for PS5, or did it start
Mm.
when it was viable? That's the real question. As all these things with
Mm.
software development, like it's all about timing as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it will be a new age of games as developers learn it, as the engines work,
Yeah, I mean,
and
it'll come down to that. I think. I mean, I don't really feel that we're seeing what it can truly do. We're just seeing fast load times.
Hmm.
There was one example where was it Neo? It's a From
Hmm.
Software game, and I think on the older generation of consoles, it was taking I don't know. I'm gonna say something like 20 to 30 seconds to load something in. On the remastered version, and it's not just backwards compatible. It's kind of a full remaster, probably
Mm.
using PS5's APIs, 1 to 2 seconds, something along those lines.
Yeah.
So even the backwards compatible thing isn't really making full use of the drive. I think it's
Yeah.
I guess it's the backwards compatibility stuff. I mean, there are limitations. You can't go too far
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think Al, that's pretty much the conclusion. All the topics we wanted to talk about today. So
Yeah.
again, it's been fun and kind of eventful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And really, I've kind of one question to ask is like, what are you playing right now? And basically, what tech orientated things are you looking at the moment?
Starting with a game. Spending a lot of time still with Genshin
Yeah, you
Impact,
mentioned that.
which is a free to play game. There's a lot of strange, funny things in it, but it's generally a well balanced game, and it doesn't, because it's a free to play game, it does try to push you to spend money, but actually, it's not been too bad for me. Kind of on it, and maybe we can touch upon that in the kind of later topics. Tech wise, not a huge amount at the moment. I think I've just been waiting for, I've been away from London, so my machine, my kind of desktop PC is away from me, so less playing around with tech so far, and just trying to get through it, and that's probably why I'm thinking of building a new PC,
Yeah, well,
again, or
good
maybe
luck
a
with getting
gaming
parts for
laptop
that.
or something, just to keep me.
At
Yeah,
MSRP, I should
exactly.
say. I should caveat that with at MSRP.
But as you're saying with like ray tracing, maybe it's my opportunity to, because I can probably get an AMD 5600X with a
Mm,
Nvidia 3070 pretty easily at an okay
yeah.
price.
I actually
So
think you should kind of
yeah,
wait to the 3060 Ti if that's even real. I mean, I'm sure it is
mm,
because I hear that's basically very
yeah,
close to 3070.
yeah, and the 6700 XT from AMD as well
Yeah.
is somewhere in Q1. So I might just wait for that. I think if I can just avoid the urge in the next month or two, then that'll probably work out quite
It's
well.
all about the urge, isn't it? At the end of the day, I mean,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
tech heads,
yeah,
we want to try and get our hands on the newest technology as soon as we can and all that kind of stuff.
yeah. Well, what about yourself? Obviously, you got the PS5, but I think time's your limitation.
Yeah, my time's definitely my limitation. And for people who don't know me, I'm kind of a full-time dad, so full-time new dad, I should say. For me, I mean, I'm just kind of dabbling with the PS5, so what
Hmm,
I'm doing is really kind of mixing old games with new. I'm probably working towards a platinum for Batman Arkham Knight,
hmm,
even though I'm
hmm,
not admitting that. Trying that on PS5, and I've started God of War because I've got a massive back catalogue that
hmm, hmm,
I'm not really making any inroads in, so it's about time I do that. But also I'm dabbling with Demon Souls,
hmm.
dabbling with the Astro game on PS5.
Yeah.
At some point I've really got to at least load up Spider-Man. I dabbled with Control the other day, which I was
Hmm,
actually suitably impressed with, and actually I remember being quite impressed with the way the haptics worked on it.
hmm, 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 hmm.
So I'm doing all of that sort of stuff, and PC wise, you and I and Rob, we're playing Gears,
Gears, yeah.
yeah, Gears 5, and we're trying to get through the campaign together. So tech wise, I'm not doing too much. I mean, my current PC's been built for about a year. I
Hmm,
need to kind of really refresh some of the drivers at some point,
hmm,
BIOS,
hmm, hmm, hmm.
but that'll be the only other thing that I'm doing.
Yeah. I might try and get a cheap copy of Cyberpunk or something. That's what I might do. I'm not sure it'll run on my PC on my laptop at the moment.
Probably not your laptop, but definitely on your desktop.
Hmm.
My personal opinion that is that the whole cyberpunk thing, I think you should hold off.
Yeah. They've released a patch, but it's only for a few
I
fixes.
honestly think right, it's at minimum a 3 month to 6 month wait. I think it's closer to 6 months.
Hmm.
Certainly, if you're a console owner, it's kind of a 6 month wait. in
Yeah.
my view.
Yeah.
If you're a PC owner, it's probably a 3 month wait. I don't really want to. I don't really want to play it right now because I don't want my enjoyment of what could be a really good game kind of like like impacted by this nonsense.
Yeah.
What I've been hearing about it's not been very good.
Yeah, there's just too many immersion
Well,
breaking
yeah, I know,
bugs
but forget about
in that.
immersion breaking. There's just too many
This.
bugs. You know what I mean? Like, I do understand that people need to make money,
Yeah.
but it's kind of like, hell, did you tell the truth? We shouldn't tolerate products like this. It's a product after all.
Mm. But it was delayed multiple times, though, right? That was the main issue.
Yeah, but clearly
I
for good
imagine.
reason.
Oh yeah.
I mean, look, you and I are basically in the software development world, right?
Mm. Mm.
And we know for sure that if something gets delayed, we never ever give it enough of a delay, if you know what I mean. We
Yep.
delay it enough so we can deliver something and say we've
Mm-hmm.
delivered something, right? But my view is that for a product like this, pretty much almost a halo product for the new generation of hardware,
Mm. 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 Mm.
you should give it enough time. If you need to shine this bloody thing, shine it. Yeah?
Yep.
Give it a 3 month delay. Hell, give it a 6 month delay if you need to. And I'm sure that's what they're going to do with Halo as well, because, that was a bit
Mm.
of a shit show as well.
Yeah, but that was more underwhelming graphics, underwhelming environment, underwhelming. It's like you're just missing a lot of stuff in that Halo kind of piece. And obviously, it wasn't. You looked at it and as you go, how is that supposed to compete with PS5 exclusives? I think that was
I think
the
that was,
main
yeah, I
issue
think that
with
was a bit disappointing. I must admit, the first time I saw it, I kind of thought to myself, yeah, this is Halo. Then I looked more and more at it, and then other people made comments on it. And I think the commentary does sway you, because I could have walked away from it and thought,
it.
yeah, it's great, it's Halo. But the more you looked at it, you thought to yourself, yeah, it's kind of Halo, but it's also kind of
Yeah.
ugly. and it's also kind of like, current gen, and it just, what was the stupidest thing about that, right? At the time, I think Microsoft was still marketing the Xbox Series X as the most powerful console out there.
Yeah.
Then, in one of their big showcases, they showed that version of Halo. And I thought to myself,
Yeah.
damn, that wasn't that clever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was before or after Sony had their showcase. And I think
No,
it was,
Microsoft went first, I think. I think.
I don't know, I think Sony might have gone before. They showed Horizon, and I actually think Sony went first.
Sony. Oh no. Sony did their hardware one, right? So Mark Cerny went through his
Yeah.
SSD stuff and everything there. There was a few clips of it in there. I think. Was there any clips?
No clips.
There
It
might
was
not have been
just,
any clips.
yeah, it was all Mark
Yeah.
that talk Mark Cerny gave was all about developers and engineers and technicians and architects. It
Yeah.
wasn't about
Yeah.
really kind of like necessarily consumers.
Yeah. But I think Microsoft went first, then PlayStation. Well, actually, no. Maybe
No, I'm
I'll have
thinking
to
about.
review it.
Do you remember the PS5 kind of reveal where they showed the console?
Yeah, where they showed all the yeah.
But I had all those games as well.
Yeah.
And in moving that they had kind of like Horizon, they had Ratchet and Clank.
Hmm. Yeah, Godfall and everything else in one go.
But then Microsoft went next,
Hmm.
and it kind of opened it up with Halo.
Yeah.
And this is what's running on the most powerful console out there.
Yeah.
It wasn't a good look.
Yeah. 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 Sounds like well, it'd be interesting to see how they evolve that. They do need something that pushes their hardware on
Yeah,
the
it's gonna take time. I mean, I'm hoping they turn Halo around. No matter what you say, I mean, Halo's Halo. I mean,
yeah.
it's got a real kind of like history behind it. You want it to do well.
Yeah. But at least I don't know. I think with Cyberpunk, looking back on Cyberpunk, I've still not played it yet. I got a copy from my brother who hasn't even. He's also not played it. He's not even installed it yet. He hasn't played it yet because of specifically he wants to not ruin the experience. He wants to wait until it's the right time. But I think it's still not as bad as probably what Mass Effect Andromeda did.
I
So
don't know.
you know.
I've seen some pretty horrendous bugs online. Yeah,
Yeah,
but I kind of want to play it in its full glory because when it's all said and done, the game works. Then it's gonna be brilliant. But it's just like, do you want to play it in the state it's in now? Probably not. And
yeah, yeah,
do you want to spend the money on it in the state it's on now? Probably not.
yeah, exactly. Although actually, the game is pretty. cheap. No, I think you can get it. You get it at a decent price, not not full release
Really?
price. So yeah, again, it's because of the lack of the bad press it's getting, and obviously there's still the bugs and stuff. So no doubt people have avoided. There's been less. It's still been the most successful digital sales, if I remember correctly, of a particular video game. But there's still a lot of users, a lot of people that that didn't buy it on the basis of exactly this, that the game is still very
That's
buggy.
interesting. I mean, I need to look it up because it might be worth just getting in, stowing away.
I'll add Cyberpunk to our list of
Yeah,
topics.
we need to talk about that. I think that about does it for our first neutral lounge, Al. Covered a
Hmm.
lot, obviously we've said a lot, and I think it's time for our goodbyes now, really.
Hmm.
So goodbye from me, Joel.
Yeah. Goodbye for me, Al.
Whoever's listening to this, and I don't know who that is, and maybe just you and I, Al. It's goodbye from us, obviously. And until the
Thanks,
next
guys.
time, have a stellar day.